Hello and welcome to another Charity Toolkit video by Andy Best. Today I'm going to be running through the Gravity Forms to Donorfy integration, or rather reintroducing it, as it has undergone a bit of a makeover. Yes, I want to walk you through how it works, how it looks, and give you an idea of what you can do to get your Gravity Forms data into Donorfy automatically. So the first thing you need to do is establish a subscription to the integration. You can do that at andybest.com/charity-toolkit. Look for the Charity Toolkit product there, Gravity Forms integration, and set up the subscription by way of direct debit form there. When we receive your registration, we'll prepare for you and send back to you three things. One will be the Donorfy integration for Gravity Forms plugin. You just install that into your WordPress environment the same way you install any of their other plugins, upload it, activate it, and what you'll find that does is in your Gravity Forms settings area, it'll introduce a Donorfy tab on the left hand side. In the Donorfy tab, this is where the other two things we'll supply you come into effect. You'll be given a Charity Toolkit ID and a Charity Toolkit URL. You enter both of those into those fields in that new settings area, save it, and your integration is ready to start receiving data. When you build a new form in Gravity Forms, or indeed if you've already got an existing one, come over to the settings area for that individual form. There'll be under there now a tab called Donorfy Mapping that the plugin's introduced. It will be available for all your forms, but you need to visit this first and turn the mapping on. Enable field, excuse me, enable field mapping needs to be toggled on. That means that the form in question will start reporting to Donorfy. All of the submissions that it receives will start going through to Donorfy. Obviously, leave that toggle off for the forms you don't want to turn up in Donorfy. And we're going to ask for a default Donorfy campaign as well in there. Quite a lot of the data transmission into Donorfy requires a campaign, and so it's simpler to have a kind of fallback campaign established here. What you'll find once you've enabled the mapping is that when you're on your form builder, under the advanced section of all of your fields, you'll start seeing this new Donorfy mapping section. I'll explain that now. I'll show you what that looks like in the Gravity Forms interface. Okay, with your form connected, it's now time to build it. I've already gone ahead and done that, but the process was dragging across, as you normally do, the fields, whichever fields it is that you want in your form, out of the blocks on the right-hand side into their position, to come through and configure all of those as you normally would. So for instance here we're looking for names, we're looking for appearance options if I wanted to add some CSS and so on and so on. You build your form exactly as you normally would in the Gravity Forms framework, but the extra detail on the end is for each form, each field in your form. Come to the Advanced tab on the right hand side here, and you'll notice this is where that Donorfy mapping tool appears. And we need to select the mapping. We need to tell Gravity Forms where to send the name data to Donorfy. This is the full name, so we're going to go and add that, FFF, full name. This will map to Donorfy's full name. Now, Donorfy doesn't have a full name mapping, but the plugin that I've built knows to take the first element of that as the first name, and the second element of that as the last name. If I were to add title in there as well, which I think, yeah, prefix is how Gravity Forms calls that, that would be how would get a title in there as well. You don't have to do it with the compound name field for names, of course. You could introduce your own single line field for the first name, single line field for the last name, and then map those as such here. We have first name and last name. Obviously don't double up on those because the integration won't know what to do. So similarly, go through all the fields in your form and select the corresponding mappings. Address, we have address. You'll notice there's address line 1, there's address line 2, there's also county, country, there'll be town in here as well, postal code. These are if you were not using the address compound field that Gravity Forms supplies you with. If you were, as before, going to introduce each line of the address as a single line element, you can map each one of those in turn. But we've got the address compound field in here, so we cater for that with an address mapping as well, and the plugin knows how to decipher all those fields. Same process here, email address, so on and so on. Let's get down to this field. This one's a little bit more interesting, the activity type. So I want to set a Donorfy activity as part of the submission of this form. So for activity type, I'm going to set it as activity set is down here, activity type. I've got in there a default value needed. Now this from a previous save has understood that it was test activity, which is useful because I'm going to type that in there now. Test activity. We need to add that to tell Donorfy which activity type in Donorfy we're going to engage with, and it has to already exist. So in my instance of Donorfy, test activity already exists as an activity type, and I've configured it. I've configured it so that this question for shoe size is going to come into the code 1 position. So I need to map that to code 1. It's going to take, therefore, either a shoe size of 7, 8, 9, whatever the user chooses, and push that through to code 1. T-shirt size, I've mapped that in Donorfy for my activity to come in at code 2. So I better map that the same way here. I did skip over one detail there. Whilst we do want the code 1 and the code 2, the shoe size and the t-shirt size fields to be visible to our users, we don't want them to see the activity type that's being set here, because we don't want them to infer that themselves and put their own nonsense in that field. It won't help us. So the added flourish there is under the visibility setting beneath our Donorfy mapping, we set that to hidden. That's different from using a hidden field, which is, I've lost it, here, right here. This is not a hidden field. Confusingly, we've got the same icon on there. It's not the same thing. The reason we don't use a hidden field in this instance is that hidden fields don't support the Donorfy mapping. They don't support this whole mapping construct, so we can't use it. Instead, we have to use here it is, single line text, just as before, just as many of these other ones, but in the advanced section for it, visibility set to hidden. So the user won't see this, but Gravity Forms will, hence why we have to give it the default value. We also take transactions, financial transactions, through Gravity Forms and have those report to Donorfy as well. In this particular form, we've got two different strands of payment coming through. Well, one payment, two contexts. We're selling tickets. We're selling an adult ticket, we're selling a child ticket. So for the adult ticket, I want to map that to, bear with me here, I've forgotten the order. It's an order item. Forgotten the order I just said. It's in fact the order bank of fields. It's the order item. So that's an order item. This is also an order item. And so they're not donations, they're not transactions, they are orders, and these are the two items. If I had 12 of these, I'd do this 12 times over. What the script can do, what the plugin can do, is it can iterate through all of the selected order items and prepare them as line items in the receipt element, the notes element of the transaction that comes through to Donorfy, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But every time that we do want to take an order item through, we have to put through all of the equivalent order transaction details. So I've already gone through and done some of these. We need to tell Donorfy which bank account we'd like to use for the order, and so I need to map that. Again, that's a single line text field that's got its visibility hidden, enabling me to put in the name of my bank account into there. Order product, that needs mapping. Order department, I've already done. Fund, so on and so on and so on. Now I've got my transaction for the order mappings in place as hidden fields. They will pass through, and that transaction will turn up in Donorfy for the order specifically. Underneath that, though, we're also going to be asking for an optional donation. That gets mapped slightly differently. That gets mapped as a donation amount. We're not going to be asking for many types of donation. We're just asking for the one. We can ask for multiple types of order items. So one donation, the donation amount, and equally we want that mapped differently in Donorfy, because we're not having our finance team need to distinguish between what's coming in as donation income and therefore susceptible to gift aid, and what's coming in as retail income or purchase income, and that's therefore an order. So we have these two different strands of payment coming through a single payment delivery. And so in the same fashion, the donation needs a bank account mapped, it needs a donation product mapped, a campaign, and so on and so on and so on. And we get to the very bottom here, the total. We need to map that through as payment total, and that is the accumulation of all of the finance coming through here. We do the logic on the plugin side to distinguish which came through for order items and which came through for a donation. Then it's time to save your form. So now it's time to preview my form. This is what Gravity Forms forms look like when they're being previewed. So this isn't how it appears in your final website. Once you've embedded it, everything would be styled and supportive of the rest of the aesthetic of your website. In the preview mode, it just looks like this, which is fair enough. We're going to put through a test now for Dave Testley, and he lives at number 40 London, which is in London, London, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing here, or G London. He can live there and United somewhere or other. He lives, no he doesn't, his email address, he can be contacted at davetestley@gmail.com. Sorry Dave Testley, genuine if you are. He's got the biggest feet possible, he's got the biggest t-shirt possible. He would like to buy one ticket for himself, one for his child. He will donate £15. He's not gone for the rather attractive 56. And his banking information, before anyone gets excited, is fabricated as well. I can't remember where I said he lived, so he can just have no, that's not going to work. That's going to work. That oh crumbs, I've got them the wrong way around. That'll do. Not bothered with that. We'll submit. So Dave is now coming not only into Gravity Forms as a submission, as an entry, he's also being handled over to Donorfy as well. So let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, let's have a look for him in Donorfy. So Dave Testley, he's here. There he is, Dave Testley of London. His record was created. His name is there, address is there, email, and so on. The recruitment campaign. So what Donorfy's done, I wrote general as my default campaign in the mapping when I set up, and I realized I don't actually have just simply general campaign saved to my data, to my Donorfy account data. So it looks like what it's done is it's found the general campaign for champs, which starts with general. So I mean, that's smart, that's good. But that aside, timeline, here it is. Yeah, so we've got the test activity that I'd referenced there. That's made reference again of the campaign, the default campaign, because we didn't specify an activity campaign. The notes, what the plugin does is it automatically gives you the form source as well, so that you can run that back if you need to your website and see which form it was that was filled out. We did it in preview mode from the website, and so we have the preview ID tagged onto there. This was the transaction for the event, the ticketing. So let's have a look at that. That's all the mappings that we put in the form. If I expand the allocation, This is where we get a breakdown of what was purchased. So one adult ticket, one child ticket, and then we did collect a bunch of additional fields. Gravity Forms always gives us a huge heap of fields, and so for sort of transparency's sake, everything gets piped into there as well. The other transaction was the donation, which has got its separate mappings. Don't know if we pull anything through there. We don't. We leave that one empty. But there you go. So it's one transaction, one payment on the card, but we've mapped that to two different places in. Just a couple of other features that you could use for your field mapping if the context was relevant. This is the full gamut here. I'll just arbitrarily pull out some of the more useful ones. So constituent type, you might be attributing this entire form to an organization, let's say, over a constituent, an individual constituent, and so that would be where you define that. The individual is the default. You might be capturing the date of birth of your registrants, so there's a field mapping for that. That's the bank of donation things we already looked at. Gender, again, up there with date of birth. We have a gift aid opt-in and a gift aid declaration method. So if this form were to be asking for your gift aid opt-in, we'd present that as a radio group button. Perhaps you'd want to bind that to for yes or no. And that'll assign or not assign the declaration method that you specify in the then what would be a hidden field, a single line text field with a hidden visibility. So those two would work in tandem. Some address bits there. The order stuff we already talked about. The organization name if relevant. Permission for email, permission for phone, permission for post, permission for SMS. Those are your comms channels in Donorfy. So again, a radio group field type for yes, no, toggling those on or off, or check boxes even for obviously check for yes, leave blank for no. Purposes and tags, we can scoop those up. Best to present those with the tag category underscore and the purpose underscore, the full. Not splitting those out basically in the values that pass through, and the script will concatenate through that run through that list, that concatenated list, and assign those individually. And then everything down here is activity driven. So the activity type, the 10 code fields, those are the freeform text ones, the 10 date fields, the 10 number fields, the 10 yes no fields. And if you wanted to force some activity notes in there as well, you can. And that's it. As long as you keep the plugin active and each of the forms enabled with the Donorfy mapping, they will continue to send their submissions over to Donorfy. There's no limit on the number of forms you can do this to. Well, yeah, that's about it. If you want to get started, again, head over to andybest.com/charity-toolkit and set up your subscription, and a member of the team will be in touch.